Hey everyone, for today's tutorial, what I wanted to do is create a quick lightning shader. And we're gonna create just a plane so we can test it. We're gonna create the material, and then we're going to apply a lightning shader to it. We're gonna make that shader in Amplify Shader Editor, and you can also create it in the Unity shader graph. It's a very simple shader. There's a lot of nodes, but they're all really simple and easy to understand. So yeah, let's get started. All right, so I got a brand new Unity scene, and we're going to do a couple things. First, let's create a plane, and we're going to use this just to test the shader. And let's just rotate that guy 90 degrees here, just so it can face us here. There's one other thing I'm going to do. I'm going to go into Window, and I believe it's rendering. Yeah, I'm going to go into my lighting settings. I'm going to take out the skybox. I don't want that. I just want blackness. And I don't want any source of environment lighting. I just want black. That's all fine. Yeah, you can leave all this stuff. That's fine. We're not going to have any lighting on this material anyway, because we just want to get rid of it and let the shader do its thing. So this is just a good way to test the shader, this particular shader. So I'm going to go ahead and take off. Actually, this is fine. Okay, so let's go into materials and go create and material, and let's call it lightning, and we'll apply it, and we'll see that we have it here. Now we have to create a shader. So, and we're gonna hook the shader to we're gonna select the shader in the material. So let's go to Amplify Shader Editor. Again, you can use shader graph if you want. Should transfer over no problem. We're going to say open canvas, and I'm going to get, oh, my window opened way over here. Awesome. So we're going to get a new canvas here. It's just going to be empty. We're going to want to turn it, let's do a surface shader. We're going to go unlit for light model. And then we are also going to make it transparent. And that should be good for now. So let's save it. Shaders. I'm just going to call it lightning. Lightning.shader. Let it save and do its thing. All right. And we'll call it lightning. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so we're ready to go here. So we got our emission output. We got our opacity output. So we have to create everything to put in those outputs. So as always, I like to start with the color. And let's just plug that color in here, and we can get it started. So select the game object again, and then go to its material. It should be using the lightning material. And once that is set, you can go ahead and change that material to use the lightning shader, which is the shader that we have right now. And as you see, it'll turn black, but we'll fix that in a couple seconds here. So we're using that shader. I'm going to go ahead and actually close this one. I'm going to open this guy here. So any property changes that we make will be made right to the material, and we can see it in our scene view here instead of editing the shader itself. So let's do this. So you can see I can change the color, and if I have that set as a property, and let's give it a name, color, hit save. And you can see that it shows up here. Now, anytime that I change the color, it'll change right on the material, just because we are changing the actual material shader as opposed to the shader. Changing the material shader does both, but this way we get to see a nice preview of whatever's using that material. So we've got our emission. I have a texture that I'm going to make available in the video. In the description of the video, and let's get that texture up here right now. So let's get a texture object, and I believe I just called it lightning, effect lightning. You'll see that there's two lightning streaks. I don't know, whatever. There's two lightnings happening here, and we're going to make use of both of those. So it'll just give us some variation, which will be nice. So let's go texture sample, and we're going to sample from this guy. Okay. And then what we need to do is we need to pick one of these, either the top or the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and do a UV map, texture coordinates, and I'm going to plug that into here. Now, if I go I think it's 1. If I leave it on 1 and 1, but I put this up to 0.75, or I put it down to 0.25, we can see that we can kind of center one of those beams, right? Beams, there we go. That's a much better word. So that's perfect. And that works. And then I think I also want this to kind of pan. And the nice thing about this texture is it's repeatable, both X and Y. So we're going to pan the X. And that way we'll get a forever changing lightning beam. So I'm just going to put X, I don't know, I'll just pick an arbitrary number for now. So 0.1, and you can see it pans, and it's repeatable. It'll always pan and repeat. So we're off to a good start. I'm just going to look at my, I have a reference shader over on the other side here just for, because, you know, I was testing this out. So what we're going to do is we're going to get one lightning beam going perfectly, and then we're going to duplicate that, and they're all going to kind of flash on each other. It'll be pretty cool. So let's get the one working great first. So we're also going to create a noise generator. What that does is it creates a kind of a random value between -1 and 1 for us, based on whatever the input is right here. It says size, but what we're going to use is we're just going to use time. I don't want coast time. My bad. I have a bad habit of just typing and pushing enter instead of seeing what my options are. And as you can see, what happens is that now just flashes. Okay, so we're going to use that. So we're going to say multiply. We're going to multiply this guy by this, and we're going to get a flashing lightning beam. Cool. So we're off to a good start. Now, we want to do a couple things. First of all, we want to be able to always, in the inspector, adjust the flashing, and we want to be able to adjust the panning. Okay, so let's set that up right now. So to adjust the panning, we're going to have 4 of these beams going. So I'm going to actually use a vector 4. Okay. And I'm going to call it, so we're going to make it a property. And I'm going to call it lightning, let's just say pan. Yeah, that's easy. And then I'm going to use another vector 4. I'm going to call this one, so make it a property. We're going to call this one flash speed. Okay, we're going to use that to adjust how fast the flashes are going. So that'll be awesome. Awesome to have that, that kind of options to go with it. So in order to do that, the way we're going to do it is we're going to say, well, here, let's focus on one thing here. My bad. So we're going to focus on the panning. So we want to multiply whatever. So we're going to use X for this first beam. Okay, we'll use Y for the second, Z for the third, W for the fourth. And we're going to plug that into here. And then we're also going to plug a time node. Because what the time node does is it just gives us a constant run of the value, right? Just over time. So we're going to plug that in here. And let's put the time node down here because we're going to use it for every single beam. And then plug this in here. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong one. Plug this in here. And you can see it just stops right there. But if I up this first value, let's say by 2 times 2, it's going at times 2 speed, right? So let's actually put X to 1. And that way, whatever we put in here will directly affect it. We're not multiplying it by 0.1, we're multiplying it by 1. So it's a lot easier to read that way. Okay, awesome. So the next thing we need to do is we need to do the same thing, but with the noise generator. We're going to hook this guy up right here. And the way that's going to work is we're literally just going to grab this and throw it into scale. Easy. And if we hit refresh, well, sorry, that doesn't matter right now because we haven't hooked anything to the outputs. So if I put 1, for example, it'll flash that fast. If I put 5, it'll flash a lot faster. Awesome. So that's all we need to do for that. Really easy. That's one beam basically done. And if you want to see it in action, we can go multiply Put that in there. We can put this in here. Oops, sorry. We want to multiply it by the color. And we're going to put it into emission, and we'll hit refresh. Okay, so we kind of have lightning going right now, a little bit. First of all, this is rotated weird, so I'm just going to change that. There we go. And now it looks just like these previews look, so that's perfect. So we are getting there. Now we need to make 4 of these. So you guessed it, literally as easy as just copying all of these. So just going to hit Control D to copy. I don't know what it is in the shader graph. I'm sure it's similar. Oops. I hate that. I hate that function or that feature. There's something you can click on. If you click on, I think it's if you click on this or this. There we go. It'll take you to the texture sample. It's annoying. I mean, I'm sure there's a reason for it, but I haven't found it yet. Okay. So we're going to do that. And we're going to add all these together. And that will basically give us what we have to work with. But the first thing we're going to do here is, since this noise generator is creating a -1 to 1 noise, we want to clamp that down to 0 and 1. So we're just going to hit a clamp, and we're going to clamp the lightning itself. And we're going to do that for all 4. I should have done that before I duplicated these, but you live, you learn, right? Okay, and then we're going to add all these together. So we're going to add all 4 lightnings together. Okay, add together, add together. This kind of takes forever to hook up, and it's very delicate. Okay, and we're going to plug this into here, plug this into here, plug this into here, and let's hit refresh. Now there's a problem, and that problem, obviously, is, well, number 1, we don't have the added lightning going to the multiply. So let's do that first, and let's just hit refresh and see what happens. So, I mean, it looks better already, but there's a couple problems. Number 1, we don't have any of these custom speeds hooked up. So let's do that quick. So we want this Y to go to this scale. We want this Z to go to this scale. And we want the W to go way down to this scale here. And let's move all these down so they're kind of centered. And then we want the Y to go to this multiply, right? Is that right? Sorry, I just gotta match up my lines here. There's so many lines. Yep, and then we want the time to go to this one. And then same here, so we want the Z to go to here, and the time to go to here. And then we want the W to go to here, and the time to go to here. Okay, so now those are hooked up. And as you can see, these are all just black right now. And it's because we don't have any values set, but we can set them in the inspector now. So let's put up 0.5, 0.6. I'm just putting in random values, by the way. 4, 8, and 3. Awesome. So as you can see, we're getting pretty close already. There's a lot of nodes here, but they're all very simple, and a lot of them are just a copy, right? So the next thing we're going to do is lightning kind of has like a white in the middle of the streak, and then whatever color after that. I mean, usually it's just white on white, right? But obviously we're going to go for more of a game lightning where it could be any color, purple, pink, whatever, it doesn't matter. So what we're going to do is we're going to lerp to white. So we're going to create a lerp. So there's also a lerp white too, but I don't want to use that right now. Partly because I don't really ever use it, and I'm not about to start in a tutorial video. So we're going to lerp these, and we're going to throw them into here. And now we have to give it a alpha channel for this lerp. And what we want that channel to be is basically the picture of the lightning, right? There's something we got to do though, and I'll show you. So we're just gonna, all we're gonna do is we're gonna take this picture of the lightning and we're gonna throw it into the alpha for now, but we're gonna make it better eventually, because right now that looks kind of stupid. So part of the problem is that this needs to be white, because remember we said we wanted to lerp to a white color, right? So there we go, much better. That looks like lightning. But there's one other thing we can do here, and we can kind of give whoever's working with this material the option to choose how much white they want in it. So let's set up a float. And let's call it property. Let's call it intensity. And then let's set up a multiply. And let's drag that down to here. I'm going to drag this up to here. And we're going to put that in instead. So it's at 0 right now. And if we up this intensity, as you can see, it gets more and more intense until it's just completely white. So let's clamp that to a value. So in the inspector, whatever we put as the min-max, it'll make a slider and put that in. So let's put it 0 to 2. Actually, let's try 0 to 1. So if I'm way at 1, it's pretty close to white. And if I go down, we get all the way to just blue, right? So that's pretty cool. Let's just change this color so we can see it a little better. Green will look good. See, just like pure green and then like kind of green with white. So that's pretty cool. And then at 0.5, it's kind of a nice kind of rounded out lightning look, I guess you could say. So there is, I think, 1 or 2 more things we need to do. Actually, I think just 1 more thing. Well, sorry, 2 more. We're going to use this intensity to also affect the opacity. And you know, now that I think about it, let's just, for testing, let's go and let's get that light settings. Let's get that skybox back. So let's just get the default skybox, just because we want to see some opacity here, right? And we want to see the transparency more than the, well, they're both the same thing. I guess just opposites. Okay, so intensity, and what we're going to do is, so the opacity, we don't have anything in the opacity yet. And the easiest way to, I mean, what we could do is we could just plug this right in here, right? And we're going to get opacity because it's using a black and white channel and it's throwing it into here and we've got opacity. It already looks awesome. But let's add that intensity to it. So we're going to add intensity and we're going to grab this opacity and we're going to plug this in instead. And let's just see what that does. Okay, that is not what we want to do. But we're getting close. So what we want to do here is, so I plugged in the intensity. What we actually want to do is plug in this multiply. Whoops, my bad. There we go. Now you can see the lines are a little thicker than they were before. And as we up that intensity, it's hard to grab. As we up that intensity, we'll get like a more intense lightning. And as we go down, we get less opacity, right? So that's kind of cool. I like that. Let's leave that. Now the last thing we have to do is we need to get rid of this top flashing thing and the bottom flashing thing because we just want the middle, right? If we have everything, it looks a little ridiculous. So that is a really easy thing to do. We're going to go UV and we're going to grab a texture coordinates. That is a rotator. We're going to grab texture coordinates like so. We're going to grab the V because that is the up and down. Okay, so we're going to remap the V. I'll show you here. And we're going to remap this, the V again, but we're going to reverse the V first. So we're going to go 1 and 0. So now we've got these two things here, right? And I'll show you why I have the remaps. I know I'm not using them really yet at all, but I'm going to show you what they're for. Okay, so I'm going to show you what I'm doing with the remaps here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply them together because we need to get white in the middle. And right now we have white on the top, white on the bottom. If I multiply them together, well, here's the result. Is we kind of get this gradient that goes from dark to 0.5 and then 0. So it's 0.50, right? 0, gray, or black, gray, black. And then what we want to do is we want to floor that. Okay, so what flooring does is it takes everything below 1 and puts it to 0. Everything above 1, it puts it to 1. We don't have anything above 1 yet, so we get nothing but zeros, just a bunch of black. We're going to clamp it, And I know this probably doesn't make too much sense yet, but in 2 seconds it will. And then what we're going to do is we're going to multiply. That's not multiply. Well, here, let's get this working first. So in order to do this, really all we have to do is up one of these remaps. I'll show you what I mean. Check that out. So you can just drag it to however much you want, but I think a good value is probably 5. I think that's going to give us, it's going to mask out the top and mask out the bottom, and we can always up that a little bit if we want. If I was better at math, I would tell you an exact value, but I think 5 might actually be correct. And then we're going to multiply that, so this output here, by this output, and plug it into here, and hit OK. And there you go. We have lightning. The cool thing about this is it's completely tileable. So we can, for instance, let's make this plane 10 by 10. Okay, so it's really huge. But what we can do is we can also tile it, right? Sorry, that's kind of a stupid example. I mean, you could do that, but we don't really have tiling in our shader. And I forgot that it's actually Unity's default shader that lets you tile textures. But what we could do, a better way to show this, is let's just grab another one of these. So I made another plane, and I'm just going to move it over. There you go. We've got a tiling plane. Pretty cool. There you go. So you can use that for a lot of things. You can use it for, you know, special effects or, I don't know, some kind of cool progress bar or loading bar, whatever. I mean, there's 1,000 different ways to use it. So I'm just going to delete all these here. And yeah, that is about it. So have fun with that one. I will include the texture in my description. And I will see you later. Keep learning.